Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
It's time for another daily dose of Dismal Disney. I think we're going to talk about one topic, and that's going to be Disney's stock, and we're going to try to speculate as to why their stock is dropping again.
Take your pick of reasons. There are a plethora of them.
Yeah, so nobody's really addressing it yet, but it did drop off a cliff here in the last day or so. It spiked when they announced the layoffs at Pixar, and then it just started to drop, and it just keeps on going down. Now, to be fair, the market in general is down, but Disney is not coming back as strong as they were. And yeah, I don't think it's going to get better anytime soon.
I think while there are some good things, I think that I'm surprised aren't keeping the stock up. Like they think that Inside Out 2 is going to possibly have a quasi good opening. And then I think Deadpool and Wolverine, everybody's reporting that one is probably going to be the biggest movie this year. Those are working in their favor, but then you're teamed up with a bunch of other news, like, you know, they basically said their linear TV was crap.
Yeah.
They're doing that big bundle, which might, well, the ESPN one, they're still waiting to see what's going to happen with that because there might be some government interference. And then they have, you know, their big bundle they announced, but then Comcast came out with a Netflix one with Netflix and Apple TV.
Yeah,
that's bigger. And then there's just a lot of things, and they have the whole disability access stuff that's gone. That's like hit the news.
That is true. I actually had some people write me privately after we did our podcast and said that their parents were having issues with it already, and they went to Universal and they had no issues at Universal. So
there's just a lot of things going on, and I just think that it's hard to pinpoint one. I think it's the perfect storm of shit they've created. Oh, and the Pixar things. I mean, I think initially it bumped it. Now they're like, oh crap, does that mean Pixar's in trouble? You know?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about kind of the media again turning on Disney and some of their bonehead decisions. They're getting a lot of bad press lately, and it seems like like we said before, the checks are bouncing. A lot of influencers now are coming out and speaking out against the Galactic Starcruiser a year after the fact.
And saying everything that people like us have already said.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't even get me started. Because this person I remember was out there shitting on everyone who didn't like The Last Jedi, blockchaining people who didn't like Disney's Star Wars trilogy.
I believe you've been blocked for like 3 or 4 years now.
I was blocked back then because I called her bitchy ass out then. And everything else. And they were like doing all this, having this meltdown. They went to the Starcruiser, and now they talk about it like after the fact. And everybody's like, oh my God, did you see the video of them saying pretty much everybody else already said?
There are several Disney YouTube channels, and I am going to tell you, I'm actually pissed because we got attacked by their fans when we first started talking about Disney, like 2018, I think is when we started.
Not this person in particular.
No, not this person. No, not the person that the ridiculously long Starcruiser video, which I haven't watched because it's ridiculously long, but there are other fandoms, other audiences for other Disney YouTube channels that were all pixie dusters, and they literally would come after us. And one of them in particular, and I'm not going to name names, but one of them in particular actually put us on blast as being overly negative when Galaxy's Edge was launched or announced or getting ready to come out.
We started talking about how it was a bad idea and it wasn't going to probably work out well. Oh, shocker, it didn't.
And here we are, guys.
But these people now are like calling out Disney on their shit too. And
I always hated Disney, really.
It makes me mad because it's like we don't always hate Disney, but the thing is that makes me mad is because you don't understand, like, we lost so much, to be honest. Like, we lost access, we lost a bunch of things because we called out stuff when it wasn't cool to call stuff out, okay?
Yeah. So now everybody
now that's safe because people like us.
Now that it's safe, because, YouTubers like us took the lumps for 5 or 6 years now. Now that it's safe, everybody else is kind of coming out and turning on Disney. We've got other Disney news channels that are all like, oh yeah, Disney's making more dumb decisions. I'm like, dude, I go back to your first videos and you're like, everything Mickey does is fantastic.
I think the thing about, like, people, I hate it because they're just ingenuine. But beyond that, like, this person in particular, like, thought The Last Jedi was amazing. So quite frankly, most anything in their opinions of Star Wars I don't trust to begin with. But then, all they're saying is what's already been said. And then, oh my gosh, they invented the wheel again. It's like, are you kidding me?
We're going to talk about this. Basically, I think the influencer scene is collapsing too. People aren't even watching. I don't think people are watching the pixie dusting Disney influencers anymore. I think that whole thing is gone. It doesn't seem like they're doing a lot of those events anymore either. Like they used to throw all kinds of money at influencers. Now I don't think they have it. I don't think they have it, or they're afraid to do it because, you know, they don't want the drama or whatever. We'll talk about that. A lot of talk about the Galactic Starcruiser. It's so damn weird.
That's because she's that one video now. They're all jumping on it. And
Like,
it's like, but
I thought it
people
was
like us been
fine.
talking about it since before it opened. Back when the rumored prices were going to be ridiculously high. Back when I said it was, oh yeah, I love it now. They're all like, there's this thing, people didn't understand what LARPing was. I'm like, you guys weren't even calling it LARPing.
No.
Because you didn't know what the fuck LARPing was. I call it out as being LARPing from day one. I'm like, it's a LARPing hotel. That's what it is. We've said it since day one. A lot of people don't even know what the fuck that was called. And now they're like, because people don't know what LARPing is. You didn't either.
Yeah, remember when you weren't allowed to criticize Marvel at all, you weren't allowed to criticize Star Wars at all, you weren't allowed to criticize our Lord and Savior Mickey Mouse, but now everybody's doing it. Even the friendly media. So we're gonna talk about that. I think that is definitely factoring into it. I think people are over Disney, and I'm talking like
yes, a lot.
across the board.
But it's too expensive, and then they're so tone deaf.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm sorry. You can't blame their failure at the box office with these messaging movies on the bigots. The normies don't want it either. Okay?
No. So let's talk about that before we get into it any further. Go out to piratesandprincesses.net for more objective Disney news. Geeky does run that site. She's been running it for years. She's pretty objective over there. It gets us into trouble, and you'll get a woohoo. You'll get two woohoos if you go there, and there you go. So yeah, let's talk about this, because, you know, part of it could just be finances. Disney's expensive. A lot of people.
Disney is very expensive, and it keeps getting more and more expensive. I think the fact that they've made it so convoluted, it's so ridiculous. It's like now with FastPass Plus was kind of, you know, tricky too, but nothing like what they're doing with Genie Plus, Genie Plus and Lightning Lanes. It's so ridiculously tricky and difficult, and you have it's like if you go in there wanting this stuff, you just might as well plan out your whole day. I mean, it's planned out the whole way for you. It's stupid. It's too complicated. People hate it. The DAS Pass debacle does not help. They keep making all these weird changes, and people are like, why'd you change that?
Well, it was interesting though, because we did the video the other day talking about how Gen Z is not really into Disney.
Yeah, exactly. That's their next audience, and they don't give a shit. And that came out to the investors, and now that their stuff dropped again. Yeah,
because if Gen Z's not into Disney, that means they're not going to be pestering their parents, or they're not going to be able to go themselves. Millennials were very into Disney. I would say millennials were probably as much into Disney as boomers were. Because boomers, it was all like they grew up with, the Disneyland TV show, and then the millennials.
Oh, Disney was like, yeah, for boomers, it was huge.
It was like the biggest thing.
And millennials were there for like Disney Renaissance and stuff like that.
The 90s and Mickey Mouse Club and all that.
I think people just would rather, especially Gen Z, they would just rather spend their money on other kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
I think they just rather spend their money. And when people complain you can't afford a house and you can't afford this and that and the other, which they're not wrong, then they turn around and we have to pay this much to, and the Galactic Starcruiser, a perfect example. $6,000 for 2 days. I'm sorry, less than 2 days. They say 48 hours. It wasn't 48 hours. It was less than 48 hours. And a lot of that time involved sleeping or downtime. Like, you got park tickets. No, you didn't. You got to go to Galaxy's Edge only.
Yeah.
For a limited time. Then you got back on the damn ship. I'm sorry, the box truck that led you to the ship.
So this woman, this Molly, this comes from Screen Rant. She's
mad about the other video. No,
okay.
She worked on the Starcruiser.
Oh yeah, well we know how that is because one of the cast members actually followed you over to Instagram.
Oh my gosh, I remember we got the D23 magazine. We had stuff about the Galactic Starcruiser before it opened. And I was talking about how it looked like, we were making fun of jiggling rocks and how it looked like a waste and didn't like Star Wars. And of course it was Rey and Kylo Ren and all that stuff. And then, one of the cast members who played the grumpy Imperial officer guy was like coming at me on Instagram over it. I was like,
that was weird.
That's not a good way to win people to your side. No. I'm just saying.
No, it wasn't. And I was like, man, this guy's really coming unhinged. And then by Christmas of that year, it already dropped off a freaking cliff. Like they were
It didn't even make it to Christmas. It was like a few months. It was book solid, which we expected.
Right.
But as soon as you got the one and done diehard fans or people with money, it just went.
And we always get it's so weird. Like we've been doing this for a long time, guys. Like before we did YouTube, I mean, we started talking about it on YouTube in like 2017, 2018, right? We really started ramping up like 2018. But, we did podcasts for years and stuff. And we've been doing this a long time. And people like, they'll be like, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. It's like, just wait for it. Nah, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. We said, look, people are going to go. It's too expensive. This is not something you're going to do more than once. Most people aren't going to do it more than once.
Some people did, I'm sure.
I'm sure some people did. Right. But it was a one and done. And then there was a very limited audience for something that expensive and that exclusive and that.
Well, not even just that. It's like, it was very uncomfortable. Some people just don't want to be put on the spot like that. And even though they say you don't have to be, it sounds like you need it to be.
Yeah, this is like, God, this is like so. It was a life-changing experience for people.
Oh, for the cast members.
For the cast members.
And as a lifelong Star Wars fan, join the club. Lifelong Star Wars fan. By the time when you say lifelong Star Wars fan, most of these people are like in their 20s.
Yeah, I know, right?
You're like, seriously. Like, when I say lifelong Star Wars fan, I actually mean it. Now, granted, I was only like a couple years old back in the day when it came out, but I grew up with it like my whole life. Star Wars, read all the books, and up until I was in college, everything else, I was like, bought the toys and used it to pay for college. Selling vintage toys. Yeah. Like, as a lifelong Star Wars fan, it's like, get in line.
Why was it considered a failure? It was considered a failure
because it was a failure.
Because it cost too much. It was barely Star Wars. Like, I look at this, if you didn't tell me what this was from, I'd be like, okay, this looks like what, 2001? This looks like it could be from...
It looks like a generic sci-fi movie.
Any generic sci-fi movie. This does not look anything like Star Wars at all. Star Wars, prequel era maybe, but even then, there's just something missing from it. It doesn't scream Star Wars.
The Moroccan, it could look like Bespin, I guess. The Moroccan flea market one at Galaxy's Edge actually is more Star Wars than this.
This looks like the set of Battlestar Galactica.
It kind of does. It really
like
does.
The new one. But so there is basically just trying to do some damage control here. But I don't understand why now. I get that, that video's out there floating around. And then there's another website too that was taking pot shots at. And I think that actually came out before the video. But like, why is this becoming such a topic of discussion again when, it was a year ago? But beyond that, I think that it just shows where Disney's headspace is in their hubris. They've got these brands. They don't know what to do with them. And they want to just bleed people dry. And this is one thing when they were canceling projects during the pandemic. I'm like, this is an easy cut. A $5,000 sequel trilogy LARPing
You really did
hotel.
think they were going to cut it.
I thought they would.
You really did.
I'm like, nobody can be this stupid. Like, if you're going to cut one thing, cut the hotel.
And the pricing we were hearing early on was like a couple $1,000s a day, which is on the low end, it's about right.
Yeah.
But I was like, it actually ended up being more than that, depending on how many people you had. But I was like, that's insane. No one's going to pay that. And except for the diehards, which is the ones who paid initially. And then they stopped coming. And the LARPing aspect too, I was like, this sounds like a LARPing experience because we do a lot of conventions. There's always a lot of LARPing stuff. I'm like, this sounds like a LARP. And I'm like, a lot of people don't feel comfortable doing that. Like, some people are all about it and that's cool. Some people are really, really into it and that's awesome. But that's a limited audience. But then Disney's doing a fantastic job chasing limited audiences, which is probably why their stock is in the shitter.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think there are just a lot of things going on here. Their movies are failing. I mean, again, this comes down to, why did Nelson Peltz push so hard to get onto the Disney board? Why did he bring Jay Rizzullo, who was at Disney during better times, with him? And they spent all this time, basically, it feels like they spent all this time trying to defend themselves from Peltz, that they never really thought, okay, so if we win, what happens? Because there is no plan.
I mean, and to be fair, the stock market was down in general today. So I want to make sure I make that clear. So, like, I understand that everybody's down today. So, but Disney is staying down. That's the problem. They come up, it's like a little blip, and then they're still staying in that like $100 to $103 range.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. They're not coming. They're not, like, everybody else is going to probably rebound. Yeah. So the Dow falls 600 points, but Disney is going to fall farther, faster, I think, because it's people are over it. I don't see Disney coming back. I don't see them rallying anytime soon. They would have to have some amazing news. They already told people that Q3 is not going to be good. They've got more competition than they've ever had. And there's so much evidence that people are just over it, from influencers checking out and turning on them in droves. Because it really, let's be honest, it used to be a cottage industry. You could actually be a full-time Disney influencer because everybody had an appetite for Disney. And this is only 8-10 years ago. You could do it. I know you could do it because we did it. You can do it. But it's just, yeah, they did the damage to their own brand. They did the damage to themselves. We can talk politics if you want to talk politics, whatever. There are a number of reasons, but Disney is damaged goods. And, we're talking probably a year or two minimum until they can start to even turn around. I don't think Inside Out's going to do fantastic.
I think it's going to do okay, but the thing is, every time you see anything talking about this, it's good for 2024. They deliberately keep comparing it to 2024.
Right.
And I noticed that. And I'm like, well, it's great for 2024. Okay, cool. But we need it to be great for like the last 10 years. You know what I mean? Not just 2024.
It's going to take, it's like turning the Titanic around for Disney to heal, I guess. One, you're going to have people in charge that want to change. And I don't think, Bob Iger basically wants to keep doing the same thing, just less of it to save money.
The shareholders apparently do too, because they put the same people in charge.
They put the same people. So I guess that's my feeling on it, is like, if you guys really wanted change at Disney, you needed to change it up at Disney.
Well, what I found very, very funny was that Gorman guy that they have. He's in the news today because he finally got, removed from. He stepped down, I guess, in January or whatever from. Was he Morgan Stanley? I believe.
Oh yeah, anyway, yeah, I think so.
What was funny was the day after the investor call, when the stock tanked, he went and bought a whole bunch of stock. But he waited until the stock tanked and it dropped lower. And then he bought a whole bunch. And they're like, look, you should have confidence because he's buying the stock. I'm like, yeah, but he waited until it fell.
Yeah, I think
I was like, that's a little weird. And he's on the board.
Right.
It makes me have some questions.
Disney stock tends to hover around $100 a share. It's pretty stable. I remember when it hit $200 because they're like, oh, Disney Plus is doing great. Endgame's doing great. Everything's doing great. Everything's up. And it hit like $200. And people were like, look, Clownfish, you liars. Disney's fantastic. Disney's in great shape. Everything is fine. But here we are.
Well, you said it was going to come down. And it did.
I said it's going to come down.
You sold yours.
I sold mine. I'm like, I'm selling
it.
Yeah, I'm selling it high. I didn't sell it I wish I would have sold it when it was like $200 or whatever. But I think I still sold it. It was like 175. And I'm like, yeah, I'm cashing out because it is never going to be that high again in the near future.
Not for a while.
Not for a long time. And I cashed out and made some money. But yeah, I think it's a combination of many things. And I think basically people are over Disney. There is no more Disney magic. Everybody knows what to expect. And we've got at least 2 or 3 years of the same stuff. There are no surprises. We don't have any. They're not going to pull a rabbit out of their hat and be like, oh, hey, we're going to have another Disney animation renaissance. Hell no. You chased off all the people that could do it.
Well, they're collapsing animation.
Yeah.
It's prolapsing.
It is. It's prolapsed. It's a prolapsed anus at this point. And it's kind of like the late 70s, early 80s when you had, Don Bluth and company left. And
now, to be fair, though, when that happened and they left and started doing their own thing, it led to a different kind of animation renaissance. I think we're already starting to see that. As everybody else started going other places, animation's not, it's not dead, but it's definitely, not where it was. But we see a lot of people out doing their own things. And it's actually kind of interesting. We're getting some more interesting and promising things.
That's true. There is some really interesting animation out there. But I don't know, guys. It's just a lot of issues. Now, next year is going to be very, very interesting when Epic Universe opens and basically sucks all the oxygen out of the room. Mm-hmm. It's going to just take everything away from
Bob
Disney.
Iger, I think it's another reason their stock went down. He's acting like, I'm not worried about that. Barely
Country bears are wearing a tutu now.
Yeah,
it's okay.
It's all good. We knew it was coming,
It's Chapek. It's all Chapek's fault.
We knew. Oh, yeah, he's always blaming Chapek for everything. It's like, we knew, but it's not a big deal. And they're like, it is a big deal when their stock drops. Linear TV, stock drops.
Yeah, I just kind of like, I've given up. I've given up hope. I had hope for a while that Disney would get its act together, and I'm like, they're not going to. Not for a long time. It's probably going to be, again, you could put the quote unquote right person in charge right now. It's going to take them 10 years to pivot. Mm-hmm. They've got content in the pipeline for years. It's not going to happen overnight. And by then, faster, younger, more nimble companies are going to move in and eat their lunch. It's just, they got too big, they got too greedy, and This is what happens, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to wrap it up. Mm-hmm. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.
Bye.